Originally, we're in a different room, but since we had to shuffle things around, we thought it would be best to be in here. My name is Marina, for those of you who didn't heard before. And given the weather, I was tasked to facilitate this workshop. So, to give you a little bit of a context, Ready for Kindergarten, Ready for College is the name of our early childhood campaign. We've started this campaign about two and a half, 3 years ago, and we have worked really hard to bring quality early childhood to the forefront of the discussion. So today, we're here to speak particularly about one part of our work that is included in the executive budget, in the governor's budget, the proposal to provide $25 million for full-day pre-K, the very first in New York State history, but also to talk about what quality early childhood pre-K and pre-K look like, what should they be like. So today we have Yvette Alfonso, who is here to give us the parent and provider perspective. Yvette has been with Citizen Action of New York and the Alliance for Quality Education for a long time. She's a long-time activist and parent and works in early childhood. We have Ann Mitchell, who is a long-time researcher, and I would say, and we've worked a lot in education policy and early care and finance reform when it comes to education. She's the president of the Early Childhood Policy Research and also co-founder of the Alliance for Early Childhood Finance. Anne has worked in many states, in the early childhood systems in many states, and brings a more, I would describe it as a expert perspective on what quality early care and learning is. And she's not only but she's recognized by many organizations across the nation. She's received many awards, and we are delighted to have her here. And of course, our own Karen Sharpe, who is the executive director of the Citizen Action of New York and the co-chair of the Alliance for Quality Education. Karen is a long-time organizer and activist and policy expert in many areas, and she's here to give us be the voice for pre-kindergarten, an area that we've all worked in for quite some time now. So, first, I'll ask Yvette to go over her perspective on this issue.
Good afternoon, buenas tardes. A parent comes to a daycare center. She's picking up 2 boys, one of them with special needs. She's visibly drunk. She doesn't drive, so she's not going to get behind the wheel. But there's a question about letting her sign her children out. Luckily, a friend comes by and accompanies her home. Fast forward 8 years later, well, more like 7 years. Same parent, has a child now. The older one is in middle school, getting honors. The younger one is also doing well. And the youngest one, who is now in pre-kindergarten and is going on to kindergarten come this September, had some challenges, but is doing well. And this parent, Dawn, is now a wedding planner with a local hotel. She got her life together, and I will take credit for that. Not me, necessarily, but the early childhood program that we run at my center, and that I run in many, many centers across the Capital District and many other places. And why do I start talking about a family, a mother and her children, and her progress from substance abuser to tax-paying citizen and all that? Because I think it is indicative of why we exist, and the reason that why we need to continue to expand early childhood programs from birth all the way up to second grade, that universal pre-K is also very important, because it is those early years that we can help work with the children, but also we can work with the families, and it does make a difference. Yesterday's Times Union, for those of you who are local, or you can always see this, had a whole headline talking about striving for an education, struggling with poverty. And the main thrust of it was that people in poverty, families in poverty, are less likely to have children who attend school. I think the average in the poor, and we're talking about the poor neighborhoods here in Albany, only 47% of kids in these particular neighborhoods are prepared, and the students in the poorest neighborhoods missed an average of 18 days. And that was sometimes excused absences, unfortunately a lot of suspensions, a lot of incarceration. And again, I bring this forward from the beginning because it is what we have to do. We have to work with the children, but we also have to work with the family. Now the other aspect, of course, is why do we start so early? I'm going to read you a little book. Well, it's really more like a little poem. And it goes, nobody understands me. Nobody understands me, although I wish they would. Nobody understands me. I hate being misunderstood. Nobody understands me, no matter how I try. By the way, am I going too fast for our translator here? Are we okay? Okay. Nobody understands me, and I can't understand why. When I think of all the global snot I've tried so hard to explain, they all look amused or a little confused. Why can't they see what I mean? It's very snoofly. Nobody understands me, though mentally blit each day. Nobody understands me, but I get zugabo that way. How can I make you understand? How can I make you see? Why does my cookery biffle you so? Where will this Isabel donut go? What do expressionary inus do? When will you juggle for me? I'm sorry to translate. I know this is probably not translating too well, but nobody busies me. Nobody fibbing ut. Kibisly dun vonis. I hate being misunderstood. And the reason why I like this is because when our children start with us, do we really understand them? Do we really know what a toddler infant is saying, what a toddler is saying? It's really about 4.5 that we can actually totally understand. But we know that their brains are working. What this shows is that they're using other words to explain. And if actually you go through it slowly, you would be able to see that, yeah, there's real words in there. They're just not words we may understand. But as providers and as parents, we need to be able to help them do that. So when we're talking about what's a quality early childhood program, and again, I mean from birth on, we're talking about an environment that helps them develop, where they're understood, where they can express themselves in such a way. Now, it does not always have to do with books. There's many other ways children learn. I'm trying to see how far I can go with this thing. I think I was a launch act in my former life. Okay, somebody catch that. Come on, catch it. This is my bad arm. I shouldn't have done it with that arm. Okay, you, throw it to somebody else. Come on, let's keep it going. Throw it to somebody else. Let's throw it to somebody else. Whoa, she's good. I want her on my team. Throw it to somebody else. Whoa, even better. Uh-oh, one of our youngsters got it. Let's throw it to somebody else. Oh, that was wonderful. Okay, you can bring it back down or throw it over there, whichever way. Let's just keep it going, come on. It's getting better and better. Okay, so eventually we'll get that too. So what happened there? What are the processes that you had to use to be able to get that Frisbee? What was the first thing you had to use? You had to use your eyes. What was the next thing you had to do? Your hand, right? And here it goes again. And you had to connect those two, right? Your eye, your hand, and we call that eye-hand coordination. Guess what? You're beginning to read, all right? This is the way children learn. They learn by hands-on, by being active, by throwing Frisbees, or other things, as we know. And this is the beginning of reading. So all that play that we see in early childhood classrooms is the beginning of that. And is the beginning to put the pieces together, like those Lego blocks or the regular blocks that you have, so that you can make a base and keep building. So when we talk about early childhood programs, when we talk about pre-kindergarten going on to kindergarten, we are talking about, yes, well-funded programs, and we really like the fact that in the budget, a good chunk of money is going to expand universal pre-K, very, very important. But along with that has to come the quality. And as this group here and other groups that are not here but are here with us in spirit that are going to make that happen. Because if not, we're unfortunately, going to have kids in a room all day, but exactly how they learn, what are they going to learn? So, just so we want to make sure that everybody's understood. We want to make sure that people bethees me and Kibili Denvuzi. We want to be understood. Our children want to be understood. And that is, our struggle, continuing struggle here. Now, obviously, there's many other ways children learn. They learn from role modeling. They learn in smaller groups. I do a little bit more of, even have people, play with Play-Doh and everything like that. It was a little difficult to set that up here. But the point is that kind of hands-on, working through things is what gets to that, the brain development, gets to the child's coordination and ability to succeed. Now, in our center, a good part of our program is for special needs students. And what that means is that some children are identified, and it's all over the place as to what the special needs may be. Sometimes the physical, neurological, their behavior. We have a number of children on the autism spectrum. But what I have found is that the earlier you intervene, the more assurances you have. Now, not all children are going to be all mainstream. That's not going to happen. But a good number of our children leave our center to be able to go on to a mainstream kindergarten, or if they're going to, or with some assistance in kindergarten. And so the early intervention for both special needs and typical children in the end translates not only into quality education, but it also translates into less money having to go to those kinds of special services. It means that actually that money could go for enrichment and other things that we want to see happening in those classrooms. And it also means that families are ready to learn along with their children, and they're ready to demand that their children be educated. Thank you, then.
Thank you, Yvette. We'll give Anne a chance to now get to her presentation. Anne?
All right. I'm going to explain to you this lovely chart that I know you can't possibly read from the back. Those of you in the second or third row might be able to.
Want to do a long chart too?
All right, so the first thing to say is that there's really strong evidence that high quality early learning has a lasting effect on brain architecture and child development. And this chart is like the best shorthand I've ever seen for what that means. So you can see this is the age of a child in months, and here's birth, and here's 1 year old. And, you know, it carries on into, so it carries on into the school year. So what this says is that the connections for different functions in the brain develop at different points in time. So this one, the yellow one, is sensory, vision and hearing. And that happens really early in the first years of life. And it kind of tails off when you're about 1.5. And this one, language, begins to develop even just before you're born and then really peaks in the first year. And that's when the brain is learning, is making the connections that'll make it possible for language to develop. And this one, and this is really important for education particularly, I mean obviously languages, but this one says higher cognitive functions peak in the first year and they really are carrying on, and they kind of, by the time we get to 13 years old, they're kind of like, whatever you got before you get to be that age, that's what you got. Yeah, it's true. So I think the point here is all of these brain architecture, these parts of the brain develop really early. And how do they develop? They develop through interactions between human beings and their environment. So babies need stable, caring, interactive relationships with adults. And any way or any place that happens benefits healthy development. So at home, with your parents, in preschool, in nursery school, in childcare, in whatever programs you go to before you get to kindergarten, but most of those things are happening way before you get into kindergarten. And the one about higher cognitive functions is really important because those are things like self-regulation, which means being able to wait for something, being able to persist so that you can do something that's hard, being able to attend to a task, and all of these things have to do with what helps you be able to read and to think. So they're incredibly important. So, have any of you ever seen this chart before? Yes, good. I think this is, for me, this is one of the most eye-opening charts I've ever seen. And I too feel better standing up, so I'm just going to stand up. So I think when you understand that, you understand that all the places where children are growing and learning, all the places where they're having interactions with other children and with adults need to be as good as they can be. And we know the ingredients of a high-quality early care and education setting. We know what quality early learning looks like. And the goal of it is that children are going to be safe, healthy, learning, and happy. Because if we're learning and we're not happy, that's not good either. So it's relationships, and by far, the relationships with the people closest to you, your parents, and your teachers. So a huge important ingredient in quality early learning is the teacher. So the teacher needs to know what she's doing. She needs to have a high level of education. She or he needs to have gone to college and focus specifically on early learning, early development, child development, understand what kids in that age range are like and how they learn. Really important. We wouldn't want to have a high school science teacher that had never taken a science course, right? So we wouldn't want to have an early childhood teacher who didn't know about early childhood development and learning. The environment matters too. What happens to kids in their environment, meaning their families and the community and the environments that they're in schools, matters. And so we want to be sure that we not only have good teachers and people who know what they're doing, but we also need to have a good learning environment that has materials, that has a good curriculum. We need to have families really engaged, schools and families communicating in support of children. And we need, when we're talking about places in which early learning happens, they need to be well managed. And so these are the kind of things that we know matter. Quality matters, we know what it is, and it happens in lots of places, centers, schools, homes, and we need to support it all to be better. Having more pre-K is a good thing, and we need to support it much earlier, because you'll notice that the peak period for those skills is not at 4 years old, it's well before. So we need to be paying attention to supporting all the places where children are, making them be the best they can be, And that's what Quality Stars New York, there were some handouts up at the top, and there's some materials up there. Quality Stars New York is a system to recognize and improve all of the settings in which children are before they come to school. And we need to do both of those things. We need to focus on the places where kids are, and we need to make sure there's more pre-K. And maybe I should stop there, because I'm really interested in what kinds of questions you all have. So thank you.
Thank you, Anne.
Thanks. So our campaign, same name as this workshop, Ready for Kindergarten, Ready for College, has been focused on creating this opportunity to learn from an early age that Yvette and Ann were talking about, really from birth right up until school age, to make sure that as kids, as we said, ready for kindergarten, as kids get to kindergarten, they've had all that kind of early opportunities to learn for brain development, for the right kinds of stimulation and education that it takes to enter school ready to learn. And I know I don't need to convince this group that quality early learning is important to children's development and to preparing them for school, but it's something that when we're here in Albany talking to our state legislature, our governor, they're not so focused on. And that's really why we've got this Ready for Kindergarten, Ready for College campaign, is to get a greater focus from our policymakers on the real critical importance, as Yvette and Anna talked about, of early learning right up through pre-K. And I'm going to focus a little bit now on the pre-K part of it. We've found that both for the policymakers and also for our own organizing, that because pre-K is kind of that moment where you link the younger early learning with the school-age learning. It's a critical linking point between those two systems. And so we're trying to really expand and develop the pre-K program. So number one, all kids have access to it. And number two, it's of high quality. And number three, that both of those things happen in a way where it is that bridge that connects the early learning systems with the school-age systems that we have in the state. And as we've already heard, pretty much all of the research, all the national studies consistently show that kids who attend pre-K are more likely to read at grade level by third grade, more likely to graduate from high school, more likely to go to college, more likely to have a decent paying job, more likely to have higher earnings over their lifetime as adults, more likely to avoid some of the bad things that happen to kids, pregnancy, drugs, incarceration. Every statistic shows that kids who go to quality pre-K programs have better statistics on all these measures. So, clearly we should have pre-K for all kids, and it should be of high quality. Because of that research and because of the findings, in New York State in 1997, the legislature created the Universal Pre-Kindergarten Program, which some of you may be aware of. Has anyone here either been in a Universal Pre-K program or had a kid who attended one? A few people. Great. Anyone teach in or work in a UPK program? Oh, that supervises them. Okay, and someone else up here. Okay, great. So people know this is 1997, it's a pretty long time ago. We've had a pretty consistent track record in New York State of having successful pre-kindergarten programs, but only for 4-year-olds. And those programs have only been, at least the state funding side of it, have only been half day. And half day actually means 2.5 hours, which you can imagine is a pretty short period of time to do a lot with a group of 4-year-olds. And in addition to the fact that it's somewhat limited, it's only 4-year-olds and it's only 2.5 hours a day, the promise of universal pre-kindergarten, meaning everybody has it, has not really been kept. At this point, we've only got about half of our 4-year-olds in the state actually in the program. So we've been working for a while to stop what's really been a shrinking instead of an expansion over the past couple of years since 2009 of the dollars available for UPK. And this year, it's continuing at the same level. And at the same time, we've been pushing to expand the options for full-day pre-K. And as a lot of you may have experienced or be aware of, there are full-day pre-K programs that are partially connected to the state universal pre-K, but then there's add-on resources either from the school district or from other funding sources to create a full-day program. But the state has not ever, up until this time, actually funded full-day pre-K. And that's been something that we really emphasize a lot. As the governor's education commission this past fall, there was a new education commission appointed by the governor to look at what to do about our educational system in New York State and what are some things the state could do to improve schools. And one of the things that we in the Ready for Kindergarten, Ready for College and in Alliance for Quality Education and Citizen Action really advocated strongly with the commission was to put resources and attention into early learning and into quality early learning, because as we've talked about before, this is the foundation for everything else. kids need to be ready for kindergarten. And so this is an example, I think, of how good organizing can work. We made sure that at every public hearing the commission held, there were people who spoke out from the point of view of parents, teachers, school districts, community leaders, talking about the value of quality early learning. And we made sure that each of the commissioners had materials on it. We did meetings with the commissioners. In addition to organizing the public hearings, we created a lot of press attention to the need for quality early learning and to the value of quality early learning. We had people who were well known in their communities publish op-eds in the newspapers. We got newspapers themselves editorialized in support of it. So it was a really comprehensive effort over the time that the commission was meeting to really promote the value of quality early learning. Both on the Quality Stars program that Ann talked about and also the expansion of PreK. And because it's an education commission and didn't really end up deciding to expand its scope to include all of early learning, they did focus in on PreK. And we succeeded in getting them to recommend a new full-day PreK program that would create the availability of full-day PreK with state dollars, particularly in high-needs school districts where the impact of quality PreK has been shown to have the biggest effect on students. And that proposal was then adopted by the governor and put into his budget. The governor, for those of you who are not familiar with how the legislative process here works, the way that the state budget works is first the governor in January proposes what's called the executive budget. And that provides the basic framework for the state budget for the year and really for the next 2 years. And then that happens in late January, and the legislature has until April 1st to pass a final budget working off of that proposal from the governor in the executive budget. And given the nature of how Albany works, given the strength of our governor, mostly what the governor proposes is most of what happens in the final budget, but the legislature will definitely make changes, both adding things, revising things, and doing other things that they feel are important for their districts. So the full-day PreK program that the commission proposed was now proposed by the governor in his budget, the executive budget. He proposed $25 million to be targeted at the highest need districts, to either take half-day slots that they currently have and move them to full-day, or to create new full-day programs. It'll be up to the districts to decide which way to approach that. So this is it's a small program, but it's a really important step forward, both because it's the first expansion in PreK at all in quite a few years, and also because it's the first time the state has made this commitment to full-day PreK. And we really emphasized in the process of these hearings and the other work we've done in organizing the real value of full-day. As much as we think the UPK program, the Universal PreK Half-Day program, is a good program and we want to see it fully implemented, all of the research also shows that full day is more effective because you've got more time and you can do more with the kids. It seems pretty obvious. More time, more can happen. And I know when I think of when my kids were in pre-K, if you have a bunch of 4-year-olds and it's winter, like a day like today, by the time everyone gets their coats off and their shoes off and then sits down in the classroom, it's almost time to start putting coats back on again. So to be able to get past that 2.5-hour limit and really be able to have a full day is very helpful for what the people can do in the classroom. And of course, for working parents, it really makes a huge difference as well to know that your kid can be in the same place for at least a full school day, and a lot of the providers are able to expand that into being a full child care day as well with other resources. So we're very excited this has been proposed in the budget, and the next step now is for us to make sure that the legislature actually keeps it in the budget and maybe even make some modifications to make it better, but at the very least keeps it in the budget so that this program can go forward, and so that some of the districts in our state, particularly the poorest districts, can implement this full day pre-K program this coming September. I'm sorry, slow down. Sorry, I'm going too fast. All right. Right, that was going to kick me a bit.
Slower than you.
Yeah, I was trying. Okay, so in addition to the other thing I want to say about the governor's proposal, and then I want to talk a little bit for just a minute or two about what we can do. So the governor's proposal is this $25 million for full-day pre-K to be applied for by school districts that want to implement it, with preference given to the highest need school districts. So the poorer the district, the higher priority they are for getting the money. One of the things that we are hoping the governor is going to add, and he gets to do another set of amendments before it fully goes to the legislature in the next week or so, and one of the things that we've really been pushing and we hope he'll do, and then if he doesn't, the legislature will do, is to specify that some of this money, and we're pushing at this point for about $2 million, that it be specifically targeted for quality improvements, because as people get money for new full-day pre-K slots, it will be tempting to use that to just have as many slots as possible, which is great, but we also want to make sure, as Ann was talking about, that the quality improvement is in there so that everybody's getting a good, high-quality education. So we're asking the governor to modify his proposal to say that as the districts apply for this money, they would specify that they would use a portion of the money beyond the per pupil amount to do quality improvements, whether that's teacher training or whether it's something about the learning environment or whatever is needed to make their program a high-quality pre-K program based on the standards for quality pre-K. So that's one modification we're really looking for, is that, you know, specifying $2 million of the $25 million specifically to be used for quality improvements beyond the per pupil amounts. So in terms of what comes next, we want to get the governor to make a few improvements, including that one, and then we need the legislature to keep it in the budget, potentially add more funding to it, and then once the budget is passed at the end of March, then we need districts to actually apply for it. And this is going to be a very tight timeline for the districts, because we're talking about them finding out in April, and probably a little later than that by the time the actual request for proposals comes out from the state. And so we have to move quickly in order to get those in so that we can actually have these programs by September. So we hope that once, we need all of your help right now in getting this through the legislature, but then also we'll need all of your help back home to make sure that if you're in a high-need school district, that your district aggressively pursues this funding and decides to set up this kind of a full-day program in the district. So I think I'm going to sort of stop there and we can see what questions people have.
Yes. Before we open the floor for questions, I'd like to give the opportunity to Yvette to tell us a little bit about what does a quality interaction between a teacher and a parent and a teacher and a child look like. And then, just so that you know what's coming, I want to ask Ann to tell us, what does Quality Stars look like in pre-K?
Hi. What's your name? Hi, Sylvia. You brought your child here today. Thank you so much. How's he feeling today? Not too bad? Did he have a good enough night or not? He didn't sleep very well. Okay. So we'll have to pay a little attention to that, won't we? Okay. We know sometimes when children don't get enough sleep, it becomes a little hard for them to sit down and pay attention. So maybe today we'll start with, some quiet activities. You think that might help him? Okay. Now listen, we also don't forget the parent meeting this afternoon. The parent workshop? You forgot about it, didn't you? Okay. It's okay, it happens. You have a lot of stuff on your plate, don't you? Remember, 4:30. If you come at 5, it's still okay. All right? We'll have refreshments. We'll take care of, what's your child's name? We'll take care of Jose, okay? And you'll have a chance to learn a little bit more about what we do here to work with your child. And we're gonna give you some giveaways, some things, activities you can do at home with Jose so that you can keep him engaged, all right? And Jose, don't climb on that, please. Jose, come over here, Jose. Come on, come with me. We're going to go do some things now. All right. What did I just do there? This is like the #1 thing we have to do. When parents come into our now I'm a director. Not particularly in the classrooms, but this is the way I greet parents, and it's the way I expect all my teachers to greet parents. I don't care what kind of day the teacher's having. I want them to greet the parents that way. But I also want the parents to what? Respect the teachers. I want them to be able to come in, and sometimes they are harried, and we're trying to tell them we need diapers, and don't forget to send in some boots because we do go out in the winter, and they're like, I gotta go, I gotta can't wait, and all that. So part of the interaction and the work we do, and I'm going to be very specific with what I do at this time, but I've done throughout my career actually in education, is to make sure that parents and teachers see themselves as partners. You can't have one without the other. If you don't bring the kids to us, we can't educate them. If, when people don't have jobs, which is important. But also, if we don't reach out to you, you're not going to bring the children to us. So that's also very, very important, and something that I think parents absolutely should expect and should have, coming to them. Now, are all interactions this easy? Let's face it, no. People do have some, like I said, some rough times, and sometimes the kid is out of sort. But in terms of the interactions that we should be expecting, it's really along that way. And why is that important? I already said we're partners. We need to be in this together. And the first role model, the first teacher of any child is his or her parent. Now, at our center, and at many centers, because we do work, I do work in Troy, I work in it's with a lot of, we have a spectrum of families, but a good number of them are high risk. Some children are placed there through protective services. So it's really, really important that as we work with the child, we work with the parent, because some parents need help parenting, right? Some parents, and I'm not an expert, please me, and even though I have a little one right now, I'm nowhere an expert, but just helping parents be able to say, hey, this is what's appropriate, this isn't what is not appropriate, is so, so important. But doing that in a caring, nurturing way is what's really, really important. Now, somebody who here has said they had a child in pre-K? Okay, did the teacher talk to you about what was happening in the classroom?
Yes.
Okay, so you were comfortable leaving your child there. Because your child, and like, again, I always tell my teachers, is the most precious thing you have in the world. Nothing else is as precious. Even though they drive you up the wall sometimes, right? Come on, you can admit it, we're among friends. Yeah, it happens, I know. But the teacher took the time to sit down and talk to you, or at least give you notes and things like that. And that is the kind of modeling a relationship we want to see. And again, as parents, and those of you who work with parents, or are going to be parents, you should expect and and demand. I don't mean in the way that you go in there and say, you gotta sit with me right now, but in demand in that way that it's an expectation. Are you gonna reach every parent? Maybe not. Are you gonna reach every teacher? Hopefully. But it's those kind of interactions that I think make the difference. And also because children see that, oh man, I really got to do this. I'm not going to get away with anything, am I? and that again is also very important. I think I'll stop there.
Thank you. All right, so my question is, what does Quality Stars and
Quality
PreK
Stars have to do with PreK? Well, Quality Stars is actually organized around those things that matter. So it's got the teaching part, the learning environment part, the family engagement part, and the leadership and management of the enterprise. So what it does is actually help the people who work in a particular place to look at what they're doing against some standards that come from research and best practice and what we know, and to make for themselves an improvement plan. So they can say, we are doing terrifically well on family engagement. We're off the charts there, but you know what? Our curriculum isn't as good as it needs to be, and it's not actually lined up with the learning standards that New York State has, and we're not really sure, so we need to work on that aspect. But it basically makes the ability to have a quality improvement plan so that you become engaged in the process of getting better all the time. And that's what it does. And in fact, Quality Stars New York many other states have systems like this, and we're the only state that has made a very clear and specific pathway for public schools to be part of Quality Stars New York, and in fact is the only state that has we have begun to implement Quality Stars New York in the neighborhoods of high-need elementary schools. And we're the only state that's doing that. So we have an extraordinarily well-positioned Quality Stars New York is a quality rating improvement system. And it's really set up so that it can engage pre-K both in the community-based settings like Yvette is talking about and in the schools. Because there's a clear pathway for schools, and the schools don't have to. They've already demonstrated compliance with a bunch of the standards in Quality Stars because they are a school. So it's really about quality improvement, and it's really specific to the place and the ages of kids. So it works perfectly in pre-K.